Jai Hind and good evening, my friends. Once again, I'm Wing Commander Jaidev Desai in front of you, talking about second episode of after I saw the movie Kashmir Files. The first first video which I made last week, which I'm sure many of you have seen and many of you have liked, and I'm thankful for that. I spoke about not about the movie as such, but I spoke about why we are like this, why our political system is like this, and why we behave the way we behave. Today, I'm very happy to introduce a very dear friend of mine, Mr. Rajendra Razdan. He's a Kashmiri Hindu, and he family lived in Kashmir in 1890, and they have faced the this genocide and that Kashmiri violence which happened at that time. Introducing my friend Rajendra Razdan, we did engineering together in BITS Pilani. And he basically settled in USA, in Washington, DC area, from 1998 onwards. There he's working there. And talking about him, he did his degree in electrical engineering in Canada before working in a satellite research organization called ComSat. He also worked in CNM, which manufactured fiber optic telecom equipment, as well as represented the US in international telecom standards at the ITU. Currently, he works in the US in the Federal Communication and Commission, that is FCC. Raj, we call him Raj, so I'll continue calling him in Raj, though it is a formal video like this. Raj, welcome to my show, and thank you very much for sparing the time. Would you like to say something in your opening remark?
Yeah, thank you so much. It's really a pleasure to be here with you, Jaidev, a dear friend of mine, right from Pilani days, and we have continued meeting together a number of times, and it's really great to be here. And I really appreciate this opportunity that you've given me to express some of my feelings and emotions and things that we have gone through. So it's very nice of you to think of us, and I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Raj, when we talk about Kashmir, I think we should start from the early days. And in the movie, Krishna Pandit actually speaks out very brilliantly the importance of Kashmir in Sanatan Dharma of ours. He starts with Rishi Kashyap and what all things Kashmir has given us as an heritage. And bringing it out there, the last I would like to say that in Panchang, Kashmiri Panchang is the oldest, and it's being published since last about 5,000 years. So the contribution of Kashmir in our culture, Indian culture and Sanskriti, is extremely important to all of us. And that in monologue by Krishna Pandit in the movie is brought out very, very brilliantly, I would say. Though here, again, I would say that we would not be talking about the movie as such, but the movie, what it brought out the emotions of all of us, and that is what we will be talking about. The second thing I think very important to say that this genocide, what is shown on the movie, that talking about 89-90, it is not the first genocide which you people have faced. This is actually the 7th genocide. Am I right, Raj? The 7th genocide.
That's very right.
First one was on 1389 to 1413, I think. Then first Muslim ruler came and killed a lot of Hindus. And the last one was in, they say, 1986. And when you talk about 1986 genocide, and thereafter actually it continued and it did not stop. I mean, 89, 90 again it picked. So would you like to share experience of your family when this particular episodes took place?
Sure. Yeah. So first of all, I mean, I'm really thankful for Sri Agnihotri for bringing out this movie. And it's really, I mean, what we have been trying to say all these years through both individually and as a community about what has happened to the Kashmiri Pandit and its relevance to India in general is something that we have always felt strongly needs to be brought together. And frankly speaking, most of us Kashmiris had given up hope of Kashmir long back, but our feeling was that what is happening in Kashmir is something that is a harbinger of what's going to happen to India in the future. It has already been happening. It's just that we haven't been, most of us have been kind of sleepwalking through our lives, not totally oblivious of the impending doom that is happening to us. We've already we were once a huge civilization. We have been, slowly been withered away. We have had Pakistan and Bangladesh taken off from us. These were all Hindu lands. These were all people like you and me who thought like us, who had the same feelings as us, and they're all gone. And Kashmir is not the only one. So the recent one was Kashmir, and that was something that happened to me and us personally. But the same thing is continuing on in Bengal. It's going on in other places, in Kerala. And so this war has not ended, and we're in a war, but we're really in an undeclared war. And this war has been going on for thousands of years, and we are still not even, we're totally acting as if it's not there, and we really need to wake up. And I think this movie did a good job of trying to bring that whole thing. So with respect to our own family, I think you asked what was the yes. And so when at the time when this 1990 was there, I was in United States. I just started my job in Comsat, the satellite telecommunications company. At that time, my parents were in India. My father had just a couple of years earlier, he had actually bought a land close to Nishad Bagh, which is near the foothills of the mountains, and there's a Dal Lake right in front of our house. Beautiful location. And it's actually next to another very famous Kashmiri saint called Swami Lakshmanju, who was a big proponent of Kashmiri Shaivism. So we were really in terms of a natural beauty in a beautiful place, but also in terms of our Sanskriti, we were really tied to it, and my grandfather was actually a fellow student along with Swami Lakshmanju. They had the same guru, and so I used to see my grandfather getting up early in 4 a.m., doing his Path Puja, he was part of this whole process of, the kind of Hindu Sanskriti that we are all familiar with, Anyway, so my father was heading a laboratory both in Srinagar as well as in Gulmarg. The laboratory was from Baba Atomic Research Center. They were doing research in cosmic ray physics and in gamma ray astronomy. They had a big laboratory in Gulmarg, which is at a very high altitude. And so you get a clear view of the sky from there. So there was a lot of work that was being done there. And this was all part of the government of India. And so my father was working there on a regular basis. My mother was there with him. My grandfather was there with them. And so of course, my uncle and aunt were also in other places within Kashmir Valley, and then in terms of what had happened in Kashmir, so we were like the proverbial frog that is in a water, that is being boiled. And as the water is being boiled, the frog is so, is comfortable inside it, doesn't realize that the water is boiling, till at some point it suddenly, it's so hot that it's too late for them to get out. That was the kind of situation that my parents were in when they were there in Kashmir, during this time. So they used to having constant hartals and having constant riots and and uprisings and those type of things. It was a constant feature in Kashmiri life, despite all this talk about Kashmir, that fake talk of Kashmir that has been talked about in the past. This has been there not in our own history. Even when I was visiting, every time I'd visit Kashmir, I would see this thing. It was very obvious to me and to anybody who visited Kashmir that this was the kind of situation that things were, that there was never complete peace there, and so anyway, so my parents had gotten used to this. But they had no idea that things were as bad as they were. The first sign that something terrible was happening was when with the murder of the BJP leader Tiklal Taplu, who was killed on, I think it was in September, 14th of September.
89.
That was the very first killing that took place, where he was killed in a very horrible manner. And then just a couple of weeks later, there was Nilkat Ganju, who was a lawyer, who had tried one of the JKLF leaders and sentenced to death. I think it was Makbul Dar. I'm not sure, 100% sure of the name now. But anyway, he was the second one person to be killed, And then during this whole process, by the time 19th of January came, there were all these, as what was shown in the movie, you had all these loudspeakers day in, day out, giving the kind of slogans that you saw in the movie, basically telling Kashmiri Bhattas to leaving their wives behind, saying, Chaliv, Chaliv, Galiv, that Nara that was there, which meant basically either you become Muslim or you die or you just run away, And this was the kind of thing. But my father, again, he thought this is just the kind of thing that keeps happening. Nothing is going to happen. And, we were a little bit away from the main city, so where things were even more frightening than it was in our area, So my father was still continuing his work and he felt as a Government of India official, it was his duty to continue working till as far as he could. All his Kashmiri Muslim people working in his laboratory were telling him, it's not a good idea. You really ought to go back you should go to Delhi for some time till things simmer down and then come back. And I think it was only a few days before he actually left was, he had noticed that his car, they had a Government of India Jeep a Government of India van that used to take all of the scientists to the laboratory. And he used to go in that, and he noticed that it was being followed, and that there was even when he saw some kids, for example, actually pointing, with their hands like a gun towards them, and it kind of gave him, okay, maybe things are bad. And then there was the murder of Doordarshan TV producer, Lassa Cole, and that I think was the final straw. He decided, okay, it's time for him to leave. So he left the very next day after Lassa Cole's death, which was on February 14th, I think, something like that, So it was quite a bit far from almost a month after the exodus of most of the Kashmiri Pandits that took place on January 19th. And at that time, my mother was still left behind, because he thought he'll come back within a week, and he thought that the threat was only to him because he was a Government of India official. Even at that time, he didn't think that there was any problems for his own wife, and grandfather, and father, sorry, my grandfather. Anyway, so the very next day he left, and his Jeep, on the way, suddenly the Jeep, all the wheels started falling apart, and he just basically, by the bear, he really escaped with his life, And what they had found was that all the hubcaps had been removed, and so somebody was planning something there, and it was we are all convinced that he was on the hit list. So that's the case with my father. So he did manage to escape, and as soon as he escaped, his first thing was to tell my mother that you need to come out immediately. Things are, And so my mother was trying to come out, but she wasn't able to come out for a long time, for almost a week, because there were all these hartals. There was no mode of transportation, no taxis going to the airport. And the other thing that she noticed was, of course, we were all these loudspeakers from the mosques that were all across Kashmir, and there was mosques right close to our house also. They were also continuously blaring these kind of slogans, and at a higher pitch than before, At the same time, she also noticed that she used to go in the evening to get her, once in a while, walk down to the city, to the Dal Lake, where there were shops, and to buy fruits and vegetables. She started being told by the shopkeepers there, oh, you're a Bhatni, which means you're a Kashmiri Hindu. We don't sell to Bhatnis, So she had to go back without food, and she had to ask her next door neighbor, who was a Sikh lady, to go and get it for her. And they luckily hadn't still discriminated against Sikhs at that time. and she was able to get it, Meanwhile, she tried to contact another neighbor of hers who was a Kashmiri Muslim family. And she went to that family and told them, I need, so that family actually, the father of that family, he had a shop in near the airport. And so she thought maybe she could get a lift from him. So she asked him, is it possible for you to give us a lift to I need to leave, And he categorically said, sorry, no, I cannot do that, And so she felt a bit upset, but she went back home.
So finally, when did she
this is interesting, but this is important to, and I want to read up to this. So that evening, he came back again to her. He said, pack up your bags. You can come with me in the morning and we'll be going. And my mother said, but you just now told me that, there's no way you would take me. He says, yes, my children were there in my house. I did not want them to hear me say this, because I cannot trust my kids. Things, halat itne kharab hai, that even I cannot trust my kids, So this was the kind of situation things were in. So my mother was able to he actually helped her and she was able to escape, And so that was the situation with my mother.
No, Raj, like what you said very rightly. I mean, there are two things I'd like to take from what you have said. The first of all, this genocide, when we talk about, or the fight is going on, the war which we are, and we are acting like ostrich, hiding our face in the desert, as if nobody's seeing us, we don't know anything about it. But I think my viewers must understand that this war is going on last 1,000 years. And by one of the estimation, almost 80 million, that is 8 crores minimum Hindus were being killed in this war. And how many more will have to be sacrificed, we don't know. Now, also, when this 86, when we talk about, and then 89, 90, maximization took place at the time. Even if you look at the history, last about 3, 4, 5 years before that, which basically responsible for this, then I would like to start from this invasion of Afghanistan by Russia. And that is where America tried to fight the war through Pakistan, giving them arms and money, and gave the task to Pakistan to train the Mujahideen. And those people, that money, that arm, those trained people were used to come inside Kashmir. And that is how it started. And then in the TV discussion, I have not heard the word Operation Topaz. You see, the Operation Topaz was basically by Pakistan because they could not defeat us in war. So they wanted us to bleed with 100,000 woods by supporting the terrorism and this type of activity. I'm from Air Force. So in 89, when I was posted to Jamnagar, my commanding officer actually briefed me about Operation Topaz in 89 May. So I knew about the Operation Topaz and we spoke about Operation Topaz quite vividly. And all that, when you talk about, it has led to this. Plus political establishment, they released a lot of terrorists.
Correct.
When VP Singh government took over and Mufti Muhammad became the home minister, within 6 days of his taking over, his daughter gets kidnapped, by whom we don't know. And again, many more terrorists have been released. On 19th,
I just want to add there that all the Kashmiri Pandits, you talk to them, they know that this was all a sham. This whole
absolutely,
it was just done with the Mufti Saeed was definitely in on it, and there was no. This whole kidnapping was just a ruse to basically get the kidnappers.
And if I'm not wrong, not only Mufti Muhammad's daughter, but many of these so-called Islamist Kashmir Islamist leaders' daughters and sons and relatives getting kidnapped, and more terrorists getting released from the jail. And that is how the whole thing was built up. And when 19th and 20th, where the maximization takes place, one day before that, J&K government resigns. I mean, the whole thing was, I think, pre-planned, and it is everybody's involvement to do the thing. So that I think viewers must know and appreciate that.
Right. No, and let me add one thing. So you're right. And on 18th of January, basically Farooq Abdullah just left.
Went to
and
London.
went to London, and before that he was playing in golf while all this whole Kashmiri Pandit killings were happening. He was not, he was not even the least bit bothered about what was happening. And so, that's one of the things that this movie, I feel, brings about. But anyway, these questions, there are a lot of unanswered questions about why these politicians happen. But in addition, I was going to say that at that time, just around 19 January, the VP Singh government basically sent Jagmohan to try to fix the situation. He was not able to reach there till 20th of January.
He was in Jammu.
He was in Jammu, and the weather was bad. He wasn't able to even take a plane to Jammu. So all those people who say, "Oh, this happened during VP Singh's Jagmohan's," and they need to have their facts cleared up.
Absolutely.
People and when, as you were saying, when Jagmohan came in there, first thing he noticed was that the whole system was basically, it was already a mini Pakistan already there.
Yes.
It had, for all practical purposes, Kashmir had become Pakistan, and they were planning on 26 January to actually speak from all the loudspeakers there that we are a free country now. We're part of Pakistan. That was the aim, I think, at that time.
Yeah. But Raj, I must congratulate all of you that in spite of whatever you've gone through, and you've been thrown out of that particular place, and you went all over the world. But your community actually has done wonderfully well. If I really see a lot of my friends, the Kashmiri Hindus like you and all, somehow you have rebuilt yourself, the family and the whole community. So how did you do that? I mean, what was the support system you created among yourself? Because unfortunately, there is hardly anything coming from government, or even like I must say, I mean, sorry for the right word, but even friends were not talking about it. So how did you build your support system among yourself?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I mean, first of all, when we were since I was out of Kashmir and out of India for that matter, we were just hearing all these things happening from my parents. Of course, I heard firsthand, but also from all the other Kashmiris who left, and we were getting this news that was slowly filtering into people like me, what has happened. And then I was trying to figure out, in my own mind, what has led to all this. And we were all living, as I was saying, like this frog in a thing in this pond, which is being heated up slowly. And we were just totally unprepared for it. But I think, and has been shown in the movie, that the whole Kashmiri community has put a huge amount of their resources. Even the poorest Kashmiri family was always adamant upon getting educated, and and I think that has been the way through which most of the Kashmiris have been able to resettle, have been able to go anywhere else in the world or within India. And at the time of this thing, I don't know if you remember, but there was the only person who actually gave Kashmiri Pandits help, Bal Thackeray.
Yes.
He was amazingly, and to that, all Kashmiris are extremely thankful. But otherwise, most of the Indians that we were talking to, and even when I was at that time, when all this was happening, the only means by which we were discussing things on the internet was through something called society.culture.india. And that was where people would discuss Indian issues. And even at that stage, there was already this whole Kashmiri Muslims would come in on this and try to portray a completely false narrative. They would say things like, "Oh, Jagmohan had come there. He asked for he basically took away, he shepherded all the Kashmiri Hindus out of Kashmir so that he could have a killing field in Kashmir to kill all the Muslims." This is the kind of narrative that they were building up. It was a totally false narrative. And the fact is that most of the Kashmiri Hindus had already left before Jagmohan came. And the fact that, so we were bringing that, and we were making it clear to people that, hey, does it make any sense that people, if somebody tells you, "Oh, you need to go, go away, I'll take care of this place," nobody just goes off, from the houses just like that.
And the property worth crore you just leave behind and just go like gypsy somewhere else. It is a very stupid argument, I would say.
Stupid argument, but this is the kind of argument that these guys were making, and they were always playing the victim card.
The narrative built around us is so strong that we don't want to hear the other side of the story. So there's a one more thing which we can discuss maybe some other day. But Raj, one more thing, like it's also very important for you and for me both to keep this genocide issue alive and to tell our children actually what happened, like what the Jews have done. Jews have kept whatever Holocaust took place and whatever thing happened with them, they've kept the thing alive. Now, how did you do that? How did you inform your children or your grandchildren that what happened with you all and how did you survive, what you did and all? What is the way you people plan to keep these things alive?
So I think, yeah, that's actually a good question. And I think initially our reaction, I think, was more of shock, and there was a kind of numbness to it, the whole thing, that all this has happened. And then it's not just that this has happened, but that our whole establishment in India is kind of quiet about it. There's no real talk about it. So we had people like, a lot of people think that this is the first time this movie on Kashmir has been made, but there was actually a documentary made by Kashmiri Pandits called "And the World Remains Silent." And if you get a chance, Google it, look for it. But they was talking about, why in the whole of the country, whole of the world has remained silent to this ethnic cleansing that has taken place. And so we have been trying to speak up and make our voices heard. It's just that this movie for the first time gave an amplified voice to all of us for the first time, and that too on a big screen with so many people watching it. It's a really amazing feeling for us, so that is a really, I think, a pivotal point in our history. But in terms of individually, we have, our kids have grown up in, for example, in my own case, my kids have grown up in the United States. We have, they know about, from my parents, they know, my parents have talked to them, about being driven out. They have not told them all the details, gory details. So my kids haven't really known all the details because they are growing in this society. We didn't feel comfortable talking about a lot of these things.
But Raj, it is mandatory for us. I think, like, for example, what happened during partition? What happened during partition? I mean, people don't talk about what happened partition. I mean, what they've gone through, this particular Holocaust, or maybe talk about West Bengal after post-poll violence and what is happening. Generally, we keep quiet, and that is again which I discussed in last video. Why we are like this, and we need to change that. We need to change that. Even government also has to ensure that this type of thing is spoken about, and I'm very happy that our Prime Minister, Modi ji also said that truth must come out, and we must tell the truth to the society as such.
Now let me add to that. So with my own kids, I finally, like I've told them to see the movie. I've told them about the movie. My younger son saw it just about a week back, and he was extremely, he said, I was worried that maybe he might find the scenes too horrific, and it says no. He understood. He went with another friend of his who was a Sindhi friend, whose parents had gone through a similar situation with the party, whose grandparents had gone through a similar situation during partition. So they had they were able to discuss a lot of things, commonalities of things. But my son was saying that he was very happy that he actually went and learned about all these things, because he knew all, to some extent, some of the things, but not the gory details, not the false narrative that had been said about. But the other thing he mentioned was that he keeps getting emails from people, from other Americans who know nothing about India, who know nothing about it, but they keep forwarding things that have been sent to them by some Muslim group, saying, Kashmir is like, during the time when the Article 370 was being removed from Kashmir, there was a huge amount of outcry by the Kashmiri Muslims, by Muslims in all across the world, including in USA, and they would send these, they would send all kinds of propaganda material. And my son would say, I can see this propaganda, and the American would just forward it, thinking that it's gospel truth,
Yes.
And he says, I need to have some ammunition to fight this, and we would try to give him. But the thing is, most of us are so busy with our own lives. We are trying to make our own careers. We're trying to make our own, our kids are trying to make their own lives.
You should have used me. You should have used me to give you some ammunition.
Right. And the thing is, we do give ammunition, but the thing is, how much can you keep on doing? And people just.
But I think it. Yeah, but what you said rightly, that after abrogation of Article 370 and 35A, lot has changed in Kashmir, and government also taken very proactive measures in terms of security, going after the terrorists, also financial help which they are getting, all that been stopped and all. So a lot has changed. How do you see Kashmir today after all this?
So I think in terms of our Kashmiri Pandits, it's still not a safe place, you know. And I think that whole how should I say, that culture of basically trying to appease Kashmiri Muslims and appease Muslims in general throughout India is a big cause of the problem. You know, we have to stop this whole appeasement process, you know, and we have to stop being nice to these people who have been basically really screwing us, you know, people like Mufti Muhammad, people like Farooq Abdullah. They have been just using India. They have been amassing a huge amount of wealth at the cost of taxpayers, and India has nothing to show for it, you know. And so we just have to get rid of that whole mindset, and it really requires a complete rethinking. And we still haven't, even with the BJP government, even with everything else, there's still that mindset which is, you know, deferential towards Muslims, trying to treat them as a higher, you know, as higher things that we have to bow to, you know, and it's a terrible thing, you know.
No, absolutely. No, what you say, absolutely agree with you. The political establishment has to change that attitude of vote bank politics. Our constitution itself is anti-Hindu. The way I look at it, you talked about last video of mine. There are many of the things where, like, for example, I gave the example, the Hindu temples can be controlled by the government, but church and masjid cannot be controlled by the government. So money given by to Hindu temple been used for all to support madrasas, no thing like that. So many such sections in the constitution needs to be changed, and constitution needs to be absolutely secular in true form. So that is what need to be done. And side by side the political establishment, and not only political establishment, I would say even the administrative staff, IAS and IPS. Okay, political establishment is not ready to take action, but you are an IPS officer, you are an IAS officer. It is your duty to control the crowd, your duty to enforce the law of the land. And if you are failed to do so, so all that changes basically certain laws to be passed also in the parliament, so that each one of them will have to do their duty whether they like it or not. They just can't say my political master did not give me order.
Right. And you know, with regard to Article 370 and 35A, right? It's a shame that India has kept this article, which basically creates a two-nation theory within our own nation.
Absolutely. It's
been there for 70 years. I mean, it's just crazy, just mind-boggling. This was meant at, even, first of all, when it was brought in very surreptitiously by Nehru, you know, without any discussion in the parliament. And you know, you had Ambedkar, who was extremely angry when he heard about it, you know. But all that is put under the rug. We are told for 70 years that you have to, you know, this is sacrosanct laws, you know, that is part of the Indian Constitution. We cannot do anything. Whereas Indian Constitution has been amended so many, hundreds of times, you know.
But there's a good that abrogation has taken place now. A thing has changed. A lot of things are changing now. And like what you say, that it will take basically a lot of time to change the mindset. And mindset is not going to, we cannot change the mindset overnight. So tell me, what is the way forward, Raj? What do you think that what should government do? What we discussed a few things just now to keep the Kashmir, to bring a proper peace in the Kashmir. We did discuss just now thing, but do you want to add on to this, that what should government do as such?
So I think 2 or 3 things. First of all, I think nobody, even amongst the BJP government, and this is, I would say, even nobody has yet gone and visited the camps in Jammu, which are still existing. The camps are not, I mean, now they've been replaced from the tents that were shown in the movie to, there's now a concrete buildings there. but it's still in squalid conditions. The Kashmiri Pandits are still languishing there. Even just a visit by the Prime Minister there would be a big, boost for them. It's something that gives them feeling that they are not forgotten. Second thing I would say is the Kashmiri Hindus. One good thing that was done when this last thing after the Article 370 was abrogated and all that. Another good thing that they did was trifurcate the state. They made Jammu separate.
Yes.
Made
Ladakh taken out from the thing.
Right.
And
what they need to do in Kashmir Valley is also to create a separate area, which is what our people have been talking about for a long time. And it's kind of funny, because when we first laid this idea that there should be something called Panan Kashmir, which is our Kashmir, which is an area for Kashmiri Pandits within the valley that is specifically earmarked for them, where they can live in peace, where they have actual protection of police and of government. It's almost like a small little union territory type of thing. That is what Kashmiri Pandits have been asking for. And the first time when we used to be asking this, we were being considered as communalists for bringing this up. It's just amazing.
But there are few views on this, Raj. That when you say the separate locality, that means like a ghetto you want to create for yourself in your place. Let
me put it this way. It's like you have this cancer of Islamism, which was centered around Kashmir, right, in Kashmir Valley, which was affecting not just Kashmir Valley, it was affecting Jammu, it was affecting Ladakh areas. These people were basically, they were running short over everything else, right? The Kashmiri Muslims, What we are saying is that whole virus has to be eliminated. And so to eliminate the virus, you need to have at least something which is Hindu in the whole system, and you have to have a starting point. Eventually, when things become better, then you can spread out. But at least start with something, and have a place. And the Kashmiri Hindus have to be given, as they say, actions speak louder than words. People, a lot of the Kashmiri Hindus, including my parents, were able to sell their property. My father was able to sell his property finally, but at a very pittance, very small price. And all of us be given back our properties. And we are willing to pay the pittance that we ended up paying at that time. That should be given back to us at that rate, at which we sold it, And so government has to we feel that the government really has to show that this is how they're going to. Otherwise, it's all mere words, and it's all, and that's what, and I think the Hindu in general and the Kashmiri Pandits in particular, they feel that they've been used by each party. They feel that, okay, everything is just, one people narabazi thoda sa, and then it's all gone, So it really requires something. I'm hoping that this awakens the conscience of all Hindus across India. And it's not just Kashmir is just one part, but at least a proper kind of action there will provide some kind of faith to the Hindu community in general that this will never happen again, that they are consequent. And the other thing that I would say is all these people we have, the movie kind of showed that Beta Karate and, the JKLF leader, Yasin Malik, and, Mirwaz Myers, and who's the other guys there? There's so many other guys who have been let out free, who have been roaming freely. There's a lot of them are self-confessed murderers. Beta Karate says he lost count after 12 murders, And these guys have been going around freely at the cost of the taxpayers' money. They have to be held, the government has to be held accountable. The people who let these guys free have to be held accountable. The Farooq Abdullah government, the Mufti Muhammad, all these people have to be tried, have to be, unless something really concrete happens, it'll be just another one of those things, okay, for a few days, people got upset about things, and then it's all forgotten, and it's back to square one, and back to appeasement politics, and back to, as if nothing has ever happened,
Yeah, I agree with you, Raj. So at the end, I would like to say three things. Number one, like what you said rightly, since now the cat is out of the bag, now people know exactly what has happened. There is the first, let's take it a starting point. It's a good starting point to place. But like what you said very rightly, that when this particular thing is out, there has to be a very high level investigation done. Like example, I would let's say like example, after the Gujarat riot took place, even the chief minister was also grilled for about 8 hours, and Supreme Court also monitored. SIT was formed, and so many cases were filed in Gujarat courts, and now a lot of conviction have taken place. Most of the cases have found the conviction in some case 30 people, 40 people, and thing like that. So similarly, the whole thing must be investigated properly, and cases should be filed and ensured that proper investigation is done, and conviction rate for all this must be very, very high. And when you say conviction, it is not only Bitta and Yasem Malik and all. It is right from the top, from the chief minister or prime minister or home minister, whoever is. Like here, if the Gujarat chief minister can be questioned and tried, why not anybody else? In this also, it is much more, horror. Much more barbaric than what happened in Gujarat and Gujarat. And it is for a much more longer time. So first of all, that has to be done. So that will actually detach the people from doing the similar thing again. For every riot, like Delhi riot or West Bengal thing, what happened, for everything, if we do this, that is the need of the hour. For that, the government, our laws require to be changed, those to be changed, constitution requires to be changed. Please change the constitution. But this must be institutionalized. This is how it will be done. So that is the number one has to be done.
Absolutely right. Yes.
It is not only Bitta or Yasin Malik, because there'll be 100 more Bittas can be created, 100 more Yasin Malik created. The source has to be killed from where it is emanating. The basically sponsorer must be dealt with very, very seriously and sternly. That is what I personally feel should be done. And government should take sufficient action, not by words, but action, so that Kashmiri Pandits, Kashmiri Hindus can go back, and Kashmir again becomes a lot like what it was earlier, the heaven on the earth. And
one more thing I'd add. Sorry, go ahead.
We hope that situation like this happening in various parts of the India also must stop, and law and order and everything must be so designed and act in such a way that people dare not, I use the word dare not, try to do things like this. Yeah, you were telling me something, Raj.
Yeah, I'm going to say, and this is exactly to the last point that you made, that this should not happen elsewhere in India. There's actually our Panan Kashmir, which is our political organization for the Kashmiri Pandit, has put up a bill called the Genocide and Atrocities Prevention Bill of 2020. And I think it's people should try to join in and sign petitions to look into that and see, because what the aim of that is to say, hey, this is happening. We don't want it to see it happening again in other places in India. And this has happened in Kashmir. We are hoping that somehow some reduction is done. We still, frankly speaking, most Kashmiri Pandits have almost given up hope, of ever seeing, getting retribution. But I think it's, as you were saying, this will send if they do actually do something, it will send a big morale booster for Hindus all over the country.
See what has happened. What this movie has done basically has woken up a lot of people in the country and in the world. And so, first thing, what government we actually should do that declare this as a genocide.
Exactly.
Officially declare this as a genocide. Recognize this as a genocide, and then the lot of things will fall in place. And like what you said, that you see, a lot of people have now known the mass movement, which has this particular movie has started. I'm sure a lot of support is there, and now because of this, government will have no choice but to do a lot of things, which earlier they were not reluctant to do it because of so-called what will minority feel and nothing like that and all. But now with this mass movement which has taken place, government will have to do something, and I'm sure government will do it. And Raj, thank you very much for joining me. And I hope that Kashmiri Hindus can go back as little as possible, and we find the long-lasting peace in the thing.
I just want to
last word from.
Okay, just one thing I want to add it to this. I think one of the questions you asked is, as Indians, as all of us, what is it that as a Kashmiri Pandit, I would ask others in my community and all other Hindus do, I think first thing I would say is it's time to wake up. It's never too late, and and most of the people, I think, I use the word of the song by Pink Floyd. We all become comfortably numb, which is
Absolutely.
and this is the problem with most of us, and I think you had put in your previous video very nicely. You said, "Jab tak mujhe kuch nahi hota hai, it doesn't matter, I'm going to be comfortable. I'm not going to worry about things. Only when it happens to me, then I start getting upset and but by that time it's too late." And so the question is, why do we wait till it happens to us ourselves? And the thing is, this blueprint is not the first time, as you were saying. So the Kashmir history, for example, is very well written. It's very well. So there's all these 7 exoduses are very well written in our history books. It's not just pure itihas, which is important itself. But it's something that was written in the Rajtarani, which was one of the first books on Indian history that we have. There's also, interestingly, there's Persian manuscripts, Baharistan, where the Persian chroniclers actually, told in gory details about the kind of atrocities that were committed on Kashmiri Pandits. So there's no doubt about that. This is not something as the West, a lot of the people try to say this is saffron history or something. So I think the other thing that Hindus in India have to do, and Indians in general have to do, is throw off all their stupid history books, all the Romila Thapar books. They're all garbage, They have to really get back to learning the real history books. There's R.C. Majumdar's history. There's a lot of other Indian historians who have written proper history. It's not that history was not written, but the history that has been foisted on us there's a very nice sentence that a naked truth is better than a well-dressed lie. So what we have been fed is well-dressed lies in our histories. Naked truth has never been told to us. The naked truth is available to us. You just have to look for it, and you have to read the right books. You have to read the right, and you have to connect to your own culture. I find the other problem that I find with all Indians, including myself, I will say that because this is the way I was brought. I really didn't, when I was growing up, I really didn't know anything about Kashmiri culture, the real Kashmiri culture. The only Kashmiri culture that we knew of was the food and the few religious ceremonies we did. I was not aware of the rich heritage that Kashmir had, which was brought up in the movie, for example. But I got aware of it only in the last 10, 15 years back, But we have a fantastic heritage, and this is not with just Kashmir. The whole of India has. So we had the Sun Temple, for example, in Kashmir, which is as famous as the one in Gujarat, in Motera, for example. And there's another one.
Punar.
Yeah, and there's another one in on Konark side, right? So these were all these famous ones, and Kashmir was a center of learning, and we just need to reconnect back to our roots. Most of us Indians are. I feel we really require we have got independence 1.0. We need an independence 2.0. So yes. 1.0, I would say, is just that we got actually independent from the British, but our minds are still British in thinking.
Decolonization of the mind must take place. Decolonization of the mind.
Yeah, we have to. We just pay lip service to our religion, to our paramparas and all that, but we really don't. We don't think in them. Most of us can't even quote Kalidas, who was the greatest poet who lived in the whole world, which has been recognized. Most of us cannot even quote one line of Kalidas.
Absolutely.
And that's
we can speak volumes on Shakespeare, but not a single line on Kalidas. So that is how we have been brought up, and unfortunately, we have forgotten our Sanskriti. We actually say about 4-5 years back, we are ashamed to say that I'm Hindu. Things are changing, and I'm hope changing for better. Lot to be done. We must revisit our roots, and it is a time to do it. And I'm sure things will happen. A lot of information available on the internet, and I'm sure the people who want to get the information, they can get the information.
And I feel, like the kind of India that was envisaged by Swami Vivekanand and by Aurobindo Ghosh, is the kind of India that has yet to be take place.
Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose to be,
an India that is confident in its own real culture, in its own history, and that I think all of us really need to do. We have all the stuff in our culture to fight this war, which we are fighting, and we need to continue fighting this war. We're all in this, the greatest dharma yudh in the whole, in our lifetime and the lifetime of Hindus. And we need to fight that, and we need to understand it, first of all, and understand why it's important to fight it.
And it is a role and duty of each one of us to do our bit. And I'm sure my viewers will agree with me and Raj. Raj, thank you very much for sparing your time and talking to me. And sorry, 2019, or when you came last, I wanted to talk to you, and we did speak about it, but we couldn't find time. And now we are talking. Thank you very much, and may God bless you, my dear, and have a wonderful day.